Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 5 of the Steeler Culture Podcast presented by SteelYinders.com and a part of the Steel City Podcast Network. We are joined by Justin Otstadt of SteelYinders.com, as always, to discuss the Steelers. And we're going to talk a little bit about the free agency and what's left for the Steelers and who they could bring back and who they could bring in as the second wave is happening this week. It's a little dry out there, but Justin, man, how you doing? And how do you feel about free agency thus far?
I think the Steelers have been absolutely nailing it. I know some people are going to look at these picks and feel as if they're not doing enough. We do know that they tried to go after a guy like Orlando Brown at left tackle, which in my opinion, I feel like that's a high free agency target. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but they've been more aggressive than I've seen them in the past. Now, there is a few players, Terrell Edmonds, for instance, that we haven't got back in the fold yet, but outside of that, I think they got the guys that they need to get this defense in the right direction, which is improving the run defense, fixing some of the offensive line, and really just getting things back to Steelers football, which we all remember and grew up watching. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I would absolutely say that this team has improved in serious departments, mostly in the trenches. I feel like they could do a little more, which is pretty much what we're going to discuss today. This is kind of like a bonus episode. You guys are guaranteed at least one episode a week, but every now and then, like today, we could be throwing out an extra episode just to discuss what's left for the Steelers to do, which you already mentioned Terrell Edmonds. That's going to be the main topic to start because he's the biggest guy left when it comes to the Steelers free agents, who they should resign. I feel like he should be their top priority right now, man. They fixed the linebacker room. They fixed the O-line. All they have to do now, to make me happy at least, is re-sign Edmonds. And I think they have the cap to do it. And just to secure that we have a safety before the draft. Don't you guys agree? Shouldn't we bring back Edmonds?
When you look at what Edmonds did in 2022, he was tied for 41st in the league at receptions allowed. That's kind of up there. 24 receptions allowed overall. He did have the 46 tackles, solo tackles, and he was targeted, I believe, 37 times in 2022. PFF gave him an overall grade of 69.1. His run defense was 63.4. Coverage was 68.0. So when you look at Terrell Edmonds and look at his past and how the Steelers approached his contracts in the past, maybe there's a better option out there. Maybe it's in the NFL draft. Do I like Edmonds? Absolutely. Do I think the Steelers are going to bring him back? I think that's hard to say because it's going to depend on, and this is just my personal, they could sign him this week, which if they do, I would be all for it. But I'm thinking that they're going to let this play out and see what they could do in the draft. Because if Edmonds' market was really hot, I think he would be signed by now. Especially with the way, certain teams throw money around. Edmonds is going to be looking for a payday like his brother. So that's my thoughts on Edmonds. I think they let it play out for a little bit longer, get through the NFL draft, see if you can get a guy like Branch in the first round, and then go from there.
I could see that happening. I just don't know if they enter the draft without a starting strong safety, unless they like Casey enough to do it. But
that's what I'm thinking. I really think Casey, like on the surface, it's like a depth, like, oh, we're bringing him in for depth, we're bringing him in for the dime, whatever. But I don't know. I think there's more to this. If they really wanted Edmonds, they would have went out and got everything done, And look at the last time. Look at last offseason. How did they approach Edmonds last year? You see what I'm saying?
It's very similar. It's a trend is what we're seeing with Edmonds, and not just Edmonds, but we've seen it with some of the Steelers draft picks they've had, or some of the homegrown guys they've had for a number of years. It's the same approach. It's these 1 year, 2 year, I suppose, contracts
like
or
prove it deals. Yeah,
pretty much, and they don't really secure long-term deals. I think Edmonds is deserving of it. I may be overhyping him. I just think that his role is a little more underappreciated by some. And I think him, Casey, and Minka, and I said this for almost a week now since we signed the linebackers, for the lack of coverage linebackers we have as of now, I think those three make up for it because they're going to run a lot of dime and 3 safety sets with those guys. And seeing what it did for the defense last year, I think it would just be much greater knowing we have a linebacking core that can stop the run. So I don't know what happens with Edmonds. I have noticed that the safety market isn't very rich out there. I mean, Gardner Johnson, right, just signed with the Lions for, what was it, $8-9 million?
On a one-year deal, yeah.
On a one-year deal. I mean, he was the top safety out there, arguably, outside of Jesse Bates. I mean, he signed a rich deal, which was given, but you notice, like, it's in a lot of markets, in a lot of positions, the free agency markets are pretty dry. There's not a lot of money being thrown around. There's not a lot of crazy options out there. So I don't know what Edmonds' cost is or what he thinks his market value is. This is happening again, where I don't know if he's feeling his market or if he's even getting any offers. This is all speculation just from last year. I mean, it's like
what's interesting too is out of all the safeties. Now, granted, I haven't looked at every single safety in free agency, but I looked at a good bunch because I was doing my research trying to figure out what guy would fit. Taylor Rapp was one of the guys that I was really high on the Steelers targeting. But when you look at Edmonds specifically, you don't hear anything. Like you just said, it's been quiet.
Very.
Much like it was last year. Whereas Taylor Rapp, a guy that I really hope the Steelers would look into, he's getting attention as far back as 3 days ago from the Patriots.
Yeah.
Which, as far as I know, the report that I read is it's an ongoing negotiation thing. The Edmonds market doesn't really seem hot to me.
No.
Otherwise, I think we would have heard something.
But the remainder of the free agency market altogether just doesn't seem very hot for anybody out there. I mean, Gardner Johnson only got $8-9 million, which is a little crazy for 1 year. So, again, we don't know what his market value is. We don't know what the future holds. If he resigns, none of us here are going to complain. Right, Rob?
No, absolutely not. I mean, last year, Edmonds, I feel like, had his most productive season where he really stood out, especially like for a couple of weeks. The whole secondary was bruised up and injured. I think Minka was hurt a little bit here. Casey was on IR to start the season. Our cornerbacks were hurt. Our whole secondary was bruised up. But Edmonds was like one of the very few remaining secondary guys to stay healthy and stay on the starting lineup. And he showcased his dependability. He showcased how much he fills that hole at strong safety, how much he complements safety or opposite of Minka at safety. Mm-hmm. Minka's more so the ball hawk, the playmaker, right? Edmonds, that's not his style. That's not in his game. That's not how he plays. But as far as filling in that hole, playing a very dependable, the guy hardly misses a game.
Right.
The guy hardly misses a snap, let alone. And
we want to give credit to the offensive line for staying healthy. How about giving Edmonds credit for that, man? Ever since he came in, I don't think he's missed one game.
Or one snap at that.
Or one snap, exactly.
When you look at that position, you look at Edmonds, you look at the people on defense, really. Edmonds is a guy that sticks out because of that dependability of his availability on the defense.
And the Steelers value that. So that just adds on to the confusion of his future.
And what's crazy is the guy's still young as hell. He's only 26 years old.
Yeah.
And year by year, you see how much he's gone better compared to his rookie year, which was very shaky. And then his second year, which was shaky at the same time. To now, he has come a long way. He's gotten so much better. Again, he's not going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of turnovers, but as far as a guy that's going to fill that hole at safety and just play his style, it works. Just like when Ryan Clark played his role with Troy Polamalu. That combination worked. That safety duo was phenomenal. And I think this one has all the makings to be something similar.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
I think keeping those two together is something the Steelers should focus on. I think Edmonds should be their top priority. I hope they think that as well, but at the same time, I don't want to act like if we lose Edmonds, it's the end of the world.
Of course not. Could we absolutely get better at strong safety? Of course. And there are names in free agency, but there's also names in the draft. Depending on what happens with this position heading to the draft, safety, especially early on, is not out the realm of possibility.
No, it's not.
And there's a good bit of safeties in this upcoming draft, but if the Steelers want to look at making sure that they don't have another hole to look for and gain some more flexibility in the draft, resigning Edmonds could be, one of the ways to do it.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, and Edmonds had 886 total snaps.
Wow.
Yeah. I was trying to get that information. I knew you guys were bringing up the snap counts, and yeah, 886 is up there.
Yeah.
And that's, between the box and the slot and all that other stuff. So it adds up. And he's been consistent. So
He has. So we'll see what the future holds. Maybe we get some news this week. Otherwise, I mean, this is just deja vu from last year.
yeah, and I will say, unfortunately for Edmonds, I believe the Steelers have the leverage here.
Mhm.
Like you pointed out, man, it's the market's dry, and Edmonds hasn't, on the surface, to the public knowledge, hasn't really gotten any attention. And when you put all that together, I mean, the Steelers have all the advantage, and I think they will let this play out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think they would have resigned him by now.
I don't know. I mean, the Steelers just
It could be another one of those situations where they just don't appreciate certain members of their secondary. Guys, you brought up earlier, guys like Mike Hilton and Cameron Sutton, they were just given these prove-it-year deals instead of long-term extensions, you know what I mean, or big money contracts. And Steelers are not a team that's going to throw money,
No.
everywhere at every position unless it's to a player that's very deserving like Minka and TJ Watt. But I feel like Edmonds does not get the appreciation that he does deserve, and I think he proved that a lot last year.
right.
Which is why I say and I preach that Edmonds definitely should come back.
Yeah. But again, if he's gone, it's not going to be the end of the world. And I do trust the Steelers to fill that hole with whoever it is via the draft, via free agency. We'll discuss some of the remaining free agents and who could be free agents. We'll discuss that. So let's transition into another Steelers free agent. Zach Gentry. He's still unsigned. No team signed him. I figured teams would be more astonished and attracted to his size, but he's still out there on the market. Could the Steelers get him back cheap, or could they like Connor Hayward enough? Could they be looking somewhere else for a blocking tight end? If we can get Gentry back cheap, would you?
I would, just based on the fact that for a few things, he's a guy that's already been with the team for a while now, which means he has that familiar aspect of it. I don't really look into the whole thing of him being the tallest tight end in the league. I don't know if that's still true, but I think he's been solid. And if you bring him back, you don't have to worry about drafting a guy.
Yeah, just like safety, man, tight end is not out the realm of possibility. And it could be a case where one of the tight ends in this upcoming draft could be best player available for the Steelers. But, they already have their stud tight end and Pat Freiermuth. Connor Haywood definitely stood out as an undersized tight end that was taken in the 6th round. People think it was due to his last name, but the guy can ball. But for Hayward, I don't really see him more of a tight end. I just see him as a Swiss Army knife, as a guy that can play anywhere on the field. He just has that versatility and that playmaking ability. I do believe that. And with Zach Gentry still out there, he and Muth have that bond, that chemistry it just seems inseparable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Gentry, he was a very raw tight end when he was taken in the draft a few years ago, and he and himself has come a long way as a dependable number 2, in my opinion, and a capable blocker for the Steelers. So I'd definitely be up to bringing Gentry back to the black and gold.
If we can get him cheap, which I think we can, yeah, I think the Steelers would be all in on bringing him back just to secure our tight ends are set same the way they were last year. Moving on, we're not going to go through every single remaining Steelers free agent. We're just going to go over the main guys, most of the depth pieces, right? I mean, Edmonds is obviously the biggest guy on that list as a pure starter. We're mostly talking guys that could bring back for depth and guys we think they could get back cheap and just fill in those roles just so that we ain't got to worry about it for the upcoming weeks. Moving on, let's talk about James Pierre. This is someone I'm surprised the Steelers didn't tender, but seeing the cost at the same time, I'm not surprised. But James Pierre is someone the Steelers have loved for a while now. When they got him undrafted, they inserted him quick, and he quickly rose his stock in the depth chart. He's come in relief of injury, or he's started a couple games here and there, and he's been inconsistent on the field, but he's someone that is trustworthy and is someone you bring onto the field, and he will produce to the best of his ability in special teams, in a rotation, in sub packages. That's how the Steelers value him, and I'd be very shocked if he remains a free agent this week. I'd be very shocked if the Steelers don't bring him back. I still preach we should cut Witherspoon just to save the cap and have Pierre take his role. Everything you ask Witherspoon to do, Pierre can do better. And he's more healthy and cheaper
and younger.
and younger. So
We're talking about a guy that was drafted in 2020. And again, I like to pull up the PFF grades because it's kind of like a reflection of the player itself in the year. And when you look at Pierre, I mean, his run defense was graded 75.7. He didn't have any sacks or anything along those lines. He did have the one interception. But there's one stat that really sticks to me. He only had one missed tackle, which when you look at the Steelers defense, one of the things we always complain about is guys missing tackles. And when you think about the cornerback position, tackling is probably one of the most important aspects of playing corner outside of just covering guys.
yeah.
And so I say all that to say this. One missed tackle, that's pretty solid to me.
And that's a testament how good he is on special teams as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. And his coverage grade was 67.7, which isn't jumping off the charts, but it's not horrible.
No.
It's better than Ahkello Witherspoon, I'll tell you that.
Probably most likely.
So, I mean, just based on those things alone and the fact that he has the potential still with him being young, I don't know why they don't bring him back. But again, I think it's one of those leverage things where the Steelers are going to really explore every avenue before signing some of these guys that they know they could probably get back later.
James Pierre being an undrafted free agent in his rookie year to make the roster during a pandemic season, you know, with no preseason or anything like that, you know, that showcased the problems that he showcased right there. And for him to continue his journey as a dependable backup and improve that, you know, is great. It's really good.
I think he's very solid depth and is worth bringing back. The last guy we're going to touch on here is Steven Sims, mostly because he's our primary return specialist. He pretty much took that role from Gunnar Olszewski. And now Olszewski's still under contract. So if Sims goes, and he just visited the Texans, no deal's been made as of this recording. But if he goes, Olszewski, I suppose, is the favorite to be our return guy.
Which I'm kind of confused at that point because obviously Sims was the guy that replaced Olszewski in those duties, and he showcased much more in that role.
He didn't drop the ball.
No, I mean in some cases he was a little inconsistent, but
yeah,
he's more shifty. He's faster.
He had some breakout moments on some of those returns.
Not just returns, but even in the receiving game too. You know, there were some times where Kenny was under pressure and he just threw it, and Sims was right there at the right time and a dependable receiver. You know?
I remember, and this is ridiculous to even say, but I remember watching when we were doing watch parties and stuff, especially like during the early season. Mm-hmm. Like, we're sitting there thinking, like, dang, this guy kind of looks like Antonio Brown in some ways.
He just runs like, he moves like him. It's crazy.
Not comparing the two by any means. It's just, we're talking visually as far as, like, the movements and stuff like that.
The way he struts, I'm like...
I don't know. You give him the number, it's like AB never left.
I know. The way he struts, it's like, who let him back into the building? I thought he wasn't allowed back
No,
here.
but I feel like, plus, he's been working out with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
In the offseason with the other receivers in the group, Pickens and Johnson like that, you know. So I feel like bringing him in, not only as a return specialist, but even as a depth piece of wide receiver, I think it's something that Steelers should definitely consider.
But hearing the news of the Texans, bringing him in for a visit, could that pressure the Steelers to make a deal with Sims? Or do they like Olszewski enough to take their role? Do they think a guy like Anthony Miller could take the role? Are they heavy on Calvin Austin staying healthy and using his speed to take that role? Are they going to draft somebody? I don't know. The return game's been very iffy for a number of years, and Sims came in and did pretty decent. He did very, very well, I would say. So,
I'll say this, just like Edmonds, if he leaves, I'm not going to, have a panic attack or complain or anything like that because, I mean, this is a Steelers receiver we're talking about, easily replaceable.
That's very true. That's very true.
Maybe it's a telltale sign. I like to say these things because they're outrageous, right? But what if this is a sign that maybe the Steelers are going to target wide receiver in the draft?
Yeah, it could be.
If they're letting a guy like Steven Sims go, who's a part of the return game, part of the special teams game, maybe, I mean, they always bring these receivers in, and what do they do when they first get on the roster? They go straight to special teams. Antonio Brown did it. back in the day when he was drafted. So it's just something to think about.
That's even how Deontay Johnson started. So
Exactly.
Always a special teamer before they hit that starting position.
yeah, but keeping on the wide receiver target, let's transition from the Steelers free agents to NFL free agents and who they could still bring in for possibly the second wave of NFL free agency. Now, again,
Bring in Beckham.
what?
Bring him in.
What?
Yeah.
Bring him in.
I was waiting for you to say it.
Yeah. I'm just kidding.
The answer is no. The answer is hell no.
You
Hell
wrote
no.
a great article, by the way, on SteelYinzers.com
I did.
about this whole situation, but I'm glad we're
Indeed.
getting to dissect this.
Yeah, so let's just erase that immediately. No to
Well,
Odell.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. He says $4 million is not enough. So what's enough to him? And I don't think the Steelers are going to want to pay what is enough to Odell. I think we're fine. I think we're capable at wide receiver right now. Could we add a piece? Sure, but I don't think Odell is really the guy to go after.
No. I mean, not someone who is who's coming off an ACL injury and completely missed all of last season.
That's a risk.
That's a risk, especially for a very influential wide receiver room. So it's a risk we're not willing to take. So I doubt there's interest from the Steelers. That's something Dan Orlovsky said this morning on whatever show he was on. He mentioned
Can we just be honest about something, bro? Do the Steelers fans, Steelers Nation, are we not always, as soon as somebody's either released or there's a guy available, the first thing they do is say, we have to sign him.
That's true.
And the Beckham situation is no different. We got a high profile wide receiver who's been around the league for a long time now, has seen some success. And the first thing Steelers Nation does is go to Twitter and say, sign him.
All because an NFL broadcaster, a former NFL quarterback, put it out there in the universe, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's gonna happen."
It's gonna happen. He has a blue check mark. It's happening.
No, it's not gonna happen, nor should it happen. But what could happen is, since we were just talking about return game, right? Return specialist, stuff like that. If they want to replace a guy like Sims for not only speed, return ability, but also versatility on offense, and someone that would fit in Canada's system and the way how he runs it, and how he runs pretty much every single one of his receivers.
Pretty much, yeah.
Let's talk about McCole Hardman. I don't know how this guy is still on the market. I could have sworn he was going to get a decent contract somewhere. Now, he still could. I'm sure there's some team that's going to give him something nice. I don't know if that's going to be the Steelers. It all depends where his market value is or how much they offer him, if they offer him anything, or how his offers are going. The fact that a guy like him is still on the market, it's a little interesting to me. I'll also throw in a DJ Chark. Now, this is someone that doesn't have return abilities, but is someone with size and speed and very good hands and has been around.
He's your kind of guy, Dan.
Yeah.
He's your kind of guy, the 6'4" build, solid frame.
Another receiver that is a free agent for the Steelers is Miles Boykin. They could bring him back cheap for depth and special teams purposes. But another reason they can bring him back is size.
Yeah.
But if they want a target, if they want extra power and size on that or in the receiving core for Kenny, a guy like DJ Chark would be perfect. I feel like this receiving room could use a little extra size. I know Pickens is pretty decent in height. Of course, you got the tight ends, Muth specifically. But we could use
lost Chase Claypool.
We did. We lack that size factor at the wide receiver room. Someone like Chark would be very nice.
Yeah, because currently all we got is George Pickens with the size. Other than that, currently contracted to the Steelers, there's nobody.
No, and Chark, last year he was the number 2 with St. Brown until Jameson Williams came back from injury.
So he's no stranger to playing a second hand or even a third hand for a team at wide receiver.
Exactly. And I think this guy has experience in the slot, which with his size, that'd be, of course, a mismatch. We thought that with Claypool. In certain times it was. It's just that never worked out. A guy like Chark, I'd throw in like a 1-year flyer at him, see if he bites, and then see what he can do on the team. Bring the speed, bring the size, the hand.
And sure as hell that upside, because I feel like he's still capable of being a hell of a target for any team. He was that way for Jacksonville.
89 snaps at the slot.
Wow.
3 drops the entire season. I mean, again, his stats aren't jumping off the page, but we're talking week 2 free agency at this point.
Right. And one thing I do want to mention about DJ Chark, he went to LSU from 2014 to 2017. Matt Canada, like him or not, was with LSU in 2017 as the offensive coordinator.
Putting those pieces together.
I'm just saying. I'm
going to be honest. I didn't even think of that.
We want to talk about connecting the dots with all the previous connections and everything, right? Well, there's one at you. And just based on that, I think Chark would be very welcome to that.
He could be.
Now, I don't know if his connection or his history or relationship with Canada, I don't know how good that is or if there even is anything there. I don't know, but I'm just going to toss it out there as a possible way that Chark could come to Pittsburgh. Now, another reason we keep bringing up wide receiver that the Steelers could target in free agency is because all of us here agree, and a lot of people have been saying it around Steelers Nation, they need a veteran in that room.
Not just a veteran, but leadership.
Yes.
In that group.
When was the last time we had a leader in the wide receiver room that wasn't a third, fourth year guy?
Hines Ward, Jericho
I was gonna
Cotchery.
say, man, you got to go back.
Darius Hayward-Bay, if you want to go with him. I mean, it's been a minute. We need someone to help this young receiving core.
And yes, Deontay's currently the leader per se, but I don't think he.
Yeah, but this is a guy who turns in. I know the Deontay fans are gonna hang me for this, but
I know where you're going.
You know where I'm going, bro. He's a crybaby. Like, he doesn't have leadership qualities, in my opinion. The moment he's fragile.
Yeah.
The moment you judge him, he goes straight to Twitter and he
exactly
has the breakdown.
Exactly. That's where I was
Not
going
what
to go.
leaders do, bro. Leaders, they take the criticisms and they either listen to the criticism and adjust to it, or if they don't agree with it, they just fucking ignore it.
I've noticed like a lot, and I know this is the new era of players in football, but there's a lot of players on this roster that do that. Like they'll see criticism on Twitter and this and that, and they'll either respond or block you or both.
Or just straight up mock it.
Guys like Deontay, Kendrick Green, Kevin Dotson, who didn't Bush do it at one point?
I think.
Terrell Emmons blocked us. Like what the
Bush is captain, man. He's
Dev, let's I'd love to
that's in the past. That's in the past. Okay.
Listen, let me tell you what. These additions we got to linebacker room are far better than what Bush could ever be. So
and that's the thing I was trying to get across today on our account on Twitter. Follow us at Still Yinzers, by the way.
Yes.
We brought the Bush thing because the news broke that not only did he sign with the Seahawks, but he put out a tweet recently over the weekend, and he was basically saying he can't wait to be a Seahawk. But there was never like a typical like thank you to the city that drafted me tweet.
No.
We didn't get that.
I mean, Cam Sutton did it on his Instagram.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and that's just kind of that's become like the standard. It's class. It's saying, hey, things didn't work out here, but thank you for believing in me at one point and things like that. We didn't get that from Bush at any point, which tells me that this guy's fragile. He's fragile. He's soft. And it showed on the field as well.
Keep in mind, we are the organization. The Steelers are the organization that traded up for this guy.
And people wonder why we're upset.
And we never trade up for anybody. Ever. No. Not in the first round. Not in the top 10.
Supposed to feel bad for him, Dan.
Feel bad? I feel bad for us that we had to endure that the last 2 years.
Nah, man. The fans like us are so negative that we ran him out of town and he didn't want to play on the field and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, well, he's the guy.
Excuse.
He's the guy with the mentality that he's just a top 10 pick. He's got nothing to prove. He's got that resume.
But we ran.
Yeah, he proved that.
But
he's still going to be in the NFL. Those were his words, Lily. You can search it up on Twitter. I'm not lying.
That's a loser's mentality, man. If he wants to run with that the rest of his career, then have at it.
He can enjoy that 1-year contract because that's all he got. And as far as I know, the Seahawks were literally the only team crazy enough to kick the tires.
Yeah. Again, a weekly.
Why? Because Pete Carroll likes speed.
Oh, of course. Again,
speed and stupidity.
This is the weekly moment where the podcast goes off the rails a little bit.
A little bit, man, and I blame myself. I'm always going to be the guy that's probably going to initiate that.
Yeah.
Which I know doesn't really sit well with some folks. But
this isn't the first time we've gone off the rails about Devin Bush on this podcast, but
No, I'm just not a fan, man. I'm not a fan. I wasn't a fan when he was on the team because I am a team guy.
Mhm.
Team Steelers fan, not Bush fan. Sorry, I know I'm going on a tangent, but
Anyway, let's get back
yeah,
to it. Wide
yeah.
receiver.
Let's get back to free agency.
We not only do we need true dependable depth, but we need leadership in that room. The wide receiver group could surely need it.
Right. Yeah, like we mentioned guys like McCole Hardman and DJ Chark as the young guys with speed, and they could bring that versatility, right? But if you want someone with a little more age to bring that mentorship, that leadership, there's still guys out there. Randall Cobb, I don't know what he wants in his NFL career anymore. He's accomplished almost everything you could ask to do.
I know he was kind of linked to the Jets because of the whole quarterback situation going on up there.
A-Rod. He may still want to play with A-Rod. I don't know.
Well, that's why he went to the Packers last year. I mean, that was one of the clauses in A-Rod going back to Green Bay last year. It was like, give me Randall Cobb and I'll come back.
But a lot of that stuff was like 6 days ago, though.
Yeah.
So.
Now, Marvin Jones is still out there. He's a little older. I feel like he's more of just of an outside guy, but they could bring him in for leadership. A guy we all really like and would be a perfect slot option is Jarvis Landry.
Mhm.
Only 30 years old.
At this current stage of his career, I mean, him locked up in the slot and to showcase the leadership role, I think it's perfect for him.
But he's always been dependable, especially with his
And
hands.
he still is, yeah.
Especially with his hands. So having a slot option that's just dependable that way and bringing that leadership factor to the wide receiver room, it's a jack of all trades for what you would bring him in for. So
You could even throw out a Jamison Crowder
yeah.
out there. I think he's the perfect slot guy with his size, but I've heard nothing but great and positive things about his leadership with the wide receivers, with wherever he went, with the Commanders and the Jets and the Bills last year. He just oozes leadership.
Right. So I mean, those are options we're gonna throw out there just for the factor of that. I don't know if they actually sign a wide receiver. I would not be surprised if they don't. But I feel like the receiver room needs it. They need the depth, unless they are focused on someone in the draft. I don't know. The reason why
we all know who they're going for, bro.
Come on, don't bring it up.
Come on.
We can't afford it. We have so many. Nothing in free agency has changed our draft plans. Nothing.
For me, it kind of did though, because, and I said this on the podcast this morning, I feel like it went from left tackle. And I'm referring to the first round.
Oh, well, that factor, yes.
Yeah. It went from for me personally, it went from left tackle to linebacker to cornerback, and now it's back to left tackle. So it's been crazy, man.
I feel like our positions early on haven't changed, but the selection of where we go, that's always up in the air.
That could go anywhere.
It all
within the top 100 picks.
It all depends who's there.
Yeah.
It really does. So maybe they do take a receiver with one of those early picks. I don't know. But
by the way, we will be live.
Yes.
For majority of draft weekend.
The plan is to definitely do it day 1 and day 2. And potentially day 3. I think that'd be something. We never done that before.
We never done a day 3, no.
And I think it'd be great. It'd be long and a little exhausting. I mean, we're talking 6 hours here. But it'd be fun.
Considering we don't have a 5th or 6th round pick.
Yeah. But it'll be fun. Because most of the time we just talk about the selections and just
probably get upset and bitch about our late round gems.
It would be fun. So, yeah, that is something we definitely plan on doing. We are 5 weeks away.
5 weeks away, and it's going to come quick.
And let's get this straight, man. Are we all still focused on left tackle first round if any of the top 3 are there?
I mean, it's going to be hard for me to say no, but in the same breath, it's like, this is one of those years. If they go corner, I'm not going to get upset about it.
Yeah.
Well, depending on who they pick. It's got to be like a guy like Gonzalez or Porter.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on who's really available on the board, especially at left tackle.
I will say this. Come draft night or draft weekend, whoever they select at any point in time, I'm going to keep telling myself, no matter who they select, no matter who they pass on, I'm just going to tell myself, let it play out, because we have 4 picks in the top 80. So let's see what they do. They have a lot of options.
As long as they don't do what they did a few years back. Bro.
I know. In fact, the only time I'll be very frustrated for something like that is if they do pass on one of the top tackles.
Which is my worry.
Because, I mean, they're still going to go corner. They're still going to go linebacker. They might go D tackle. But if a left tackle is there, you still have to take it because the Steelers showed interest in Orlando Brown. They didn't finish the deal. They don't throw guaranteed money out of there. That's never going to change with this organization.
But it shows that they're not looking at Dan Moore to be the starter anymore.
Thank God. Thank God.
Yeah.
Now, what they do next, I don't know. There is nobody in the free agency pool. Nobody that
at least nobody long term. Let's say that there's nobody long term, and there's names. There's a Taylor Lewan. There's a Eric Fisher. There's a Cameron Fleming. There's a Isaiah Wynn. There's a Donovan Smith. There's names, but there's nobody dependable, and there's nobody long term. We need a long term solution at left tackle.
The only way we can achieve that is either moving Chucks to left if you trust them there, or selecting one. So, but we're gonna still discuss it in this episode regarding free agency because they obviously are trying to fix the position. I don't know if they secure a starter next year via free agency, but they could secure depth. We still only have 2 tackles under contract, and that's Dan Moore and Chucks. We don't have depth.
No, we don't.
We got great depth interiorly with Nate Herbig and them, right? But we have no tackle depth. If they want to fill that in the draft, if they want to fill that in free agency before the draft, they still have options. I love Cameron Fleming. He's the perfect swing guy.
He's up there with age, but I agree. I mean, bringing him in, especially if you're going to bring in somebody young in the draft, it's just it's a doable thing.
Yeah,
and it makes sense. In regards to Dan Moore, I do want to mention something. I don't think this has ever been said. When you look at him and the expectations of him being the starter at left tackle, he was a 4th round pick.
Oh, I'm aware of that. I'm very aware.
You know what I'm
that.
saying? He's a 4th round guy. He's in the league 2 years. And so I can kind of see like the Steelers were hoping that they got a steal there. And I noticed too with like Mike Tomlin, a lot of these guys that he brings in, he's really stubborn on giving up on them.
He really
I don't know
is.
if you guys noticed that.
Oh, I've noticed that.
Remember the cornerback room?
Yes.
Exactly.
Cortez Allen and Antoine Blake.
I would love to forget about it.
I'm sorry, but
why is Green still on this room?
But that's why Bud Dupree was still the starter for how many years, right?
Exactly. So
There's
I
cases.
guess in some ways, I think Tomlin's kind of holding out in some ways in regards to Dan Moore.
Possibly.
And maybe they hold on to him this season and keep him as a backup with the hopes that he becomes more down the road. Like you said, maybe they go and get a guy like Flemings who's up there in age.
Right.
And then have him start over Dan Moore or, there's so many freaking scenarios here. But I just got to remind people, he's a 4th round guy. It's not surprising that he isn't playing well.
No. But I tried. But last year, right? Last year, I tried to give him the benefit of. Well, he went.
Of course,
he went into 2021 not expecting to be the starter because Zach Banner couldn't stay healthy.
Right.
Last year, he had the whole offseason knowing he was going to be the starter, and I just didn't see much progression, if any.
No.
The penalties.
It was very minimal. I mean, if you look at the PFF grades, for instance, overall rookie season. Now, granted, the snap was different. The snap counts. Then again, not really though. He had 1,000 snaps in his rookie year.
Yeah.
57.8 overall grading, and then 2022 62.4. So the improvement was minimal.
Yeah.
Not enough.
Marginal.
Not enough to remain the starting left tackle.
And the Steelers showed exactly that same feeling when they attempted to sign Orlando Brown.
Yeah.
But like we just mentioned, there's not really many guys out there that they could bring in to replace him and be that day one starter via free agency. But they could use depth. Like we said, Fleming, maybe Isaiah Wynn if you want to go young. Former Patriots first rounder, has that pedigree the Steelers like. He also does have that swing ability. But I'm not really a fan of that. But I'm just gonna toss it out there just because he's
But
young.
it's also not the realm of possibility of the Steelers re-signing one of their own tackles in Trenton Scott.
I could see that.
Now he's a guy that didn't really see much action, but he was a depth piece there, and they have no depth at the moment, so it could just be a safe bet, a safe re-sign for the Steelers just to make sure they have depth.
Right.
Don't have to spend too much money, you know what I mean?
Right. Unless they maybe they don't sign a tackle in free agency, and then they are hoping someone drops in the draft. I don't know. I really don't know with that factor. I don't know if they sign any tackle on any side of the football. Let's transition to defensive tackle specifically. I feel like to make this run defense complete and I would say whole would be to sign or draft another defensive tackle. They got Joey back for 3 years, Holcomb for 3 years, Roberts for 2 years. Run defense is going to be strong next year. We all agree on that. They just need to get that defensive tackle. Alu should be retiring soon. Adams is great depth, but not a
every game starter now.
No. The only reason he was last year is because they had to sit Alu. He was that bad.
Mm-hmm.
But we need someone to still fill in as that starter on defensive tackle. In free agency, there's not much out there either. I mean, it's very dry. If you want to go for someone older but with some experience and was cut for cap reasons, recently cut from the Seahawks and was part of the Russell Wilson trade last year, I believe, was Shelby Harris.
Yeah.
That's about it. Honestly, maybe Al Woods, but he's 35. I mean, you're pretty much asking for rental at that point.
It would be a very similar scenario of when we had Alu replace Javon Hargrave. You know, he was still a dependable piece, still effective player at that position of his age, but you're not going to have it for long.
No. Unless they want to go younger. I don't know if this guy has a lot of starting experience. Derek Nottie, maybe 6'1", 320. So he's got the size a little bit. But I'm same thing with tackle. It's very bare.
I think youth is something that the Steelers should definitely look on because, let's face it, the defensive line is aging.
Well, you've noticed the past 2 years of free agency, they've targeted guys 25, 26, 27 years old.
Yeah, they have.
And they've kept that trend this year. I mean, an exception for maybe Roberts or what's his name? Isaac Seumalo maybe, but that trend's been there. They really want to get the young depth going.
But as far as defensive tackle go, defensive line really, I think that's something that they should really look at and keep an eye on. Because Hayward, for his age, he's still a monster. He's still a beast. He ages like fine wine, but he's going to be about like 33, 34 years old. And Ogunjobi, he's only going to get older. So the defensive line could definitely use some youth, some starting youth.
Yes.
At that.
Now, with that being said, there's not much out there in the free agency pool. Maybe they go into the draft, and they've already met with Mozzie Smith from Michigan twice, I heard.
Which gives me Jarvis Jones vibes.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why, bro. It's just me. I know somebody's gonna get upset. Some draft guru is gonna get mad at me for that, but there's a lot of champions in this draft, man.
Yeah, there are.
But the Mozzie, I don't know. I'm getting weird vibes. I can't explain it. But I want to go back to some of the free agency talk here, just real quick, because I think there's a name we didn't mention. Poona Ford, Seahawks.
I keep forgetting he's a free agent.
Yeah, I know it's easy to do that. He is 5'11". Rob actually mentioned this off stream.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he was that short.
He's very short, but he can still be an effective player. I can't remember if he's defensive end or defensive tackle. I don't know if the Steelers are going to be, or if he's going to be willing to really move to D tackle. I can't.
I mean, he
remember.
has the weight at 310 pounds
And
to play defensive tackle, and with him being short, it does give him a little bit of leverage in my opinion.
And a 3-4, he would be a very nice 2-down D tackle.
Yeah,
and he's
and it would be the first time an undersized D tackle would be starting.
Big snap vibes.
Yeah, Big Snap was only 6 foot, but boy, could he fill that hole.
Plus, he started all 17 games last year.
I mean, his stats don't jump off the page. 3 sacks. It's better than 0. There's a lot of players with 0.
Yeah,
but I don't know. There could be some, a little bit of potential. Maybe a new city helps him.
I actually, I hate that completely went over my head. I didn't realize he was a free agent. It seems like.
Well, the thing is, though, the last report I read is the Bills are the team that's giving him the most interest right now. So by tomorrow, this could be all just garbage. So,
but I do like the idea of him. I mean, he had success in Seattle. He's one of the guys that helped that run defense. It's potential, man. And he's only 27 as of now, so he kind of fits what the Steelers are looking for.
Yeah, he's definitely a name to definitely keep an eye out for.
Starting experience. He built his name from the ground as he went undrafted. I mean, it seems like Seattle's losing a lot of defensive tackles, and maybe the Steelers snag on one of them. And I think Ford would be the best option.
3 of them are currently free agents, so.
But
And Ford had a really good rating in 2021.
Yeah.
And who's to say that Aaron Curry doesn't, pitch something?
I see where you're going with that.
Who's to say Curry, although he's the inside linebackers coach, I think he coached the edge guys for Seattle. So who's to say he doesn't pitch in an idea like, hey, why don't you take a look at this guy and see if you can possibly bring him in for at least an interview, see what you think of the guy.
I like that idea. Justin, I'm glad you completely brought his name up. I'm mad that went over my head. So
Well, the more I look into him, over previous years, 2020, 81 overall grade, which is really solid. 2021, 73 overall grade.
it seems like the more we look into this, the more we give it thought, the brighter it sounds, doesn't it?
He had one bad season, which was 2022.
Yeah.
And, I mean, even then, he still got, pressures on the quarterback. He still got 3 sacks.
Everyone makes a big deal about Kalijah Cansey from Pitt coming into the draft this year as being undrafted. Well, or undersized, I should say. I mean, maybe due to height and weight, but that didn't stop him from rising his stock.
It didn't stop Aaron Donald at the same time. He was
Ford-
very similar in size. Still is.
Ford's just bigger.
Yeah.
Ford's bigger. So I really like that option and that potential. So, hey, maybe if Curry can put out his influence there, which I like that.
Yeah, insert him there at D tackle, give him a shot there, see if he works there. I mean, it's surely a possibility. I mean, you can't go wrong giving it a try.
And it aligns with what the Steelers have been doing in free agency, right? Not a lot of known names, not a lot of mind-blowing signing. But are they upgrades? Yes.
Without a doubt, upgrade. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to upgrade.
Right. And one thing we definitely got to upgrade is the edge depth, right? Seriously, Malik Reed went to the Dolphins. Not like anyone's crying. I mean, no one's crying.
I
over
mean,
Malik
I
Reed.
am.
You're crying?
No.
Man,
No.
man, we're going to miss Malik Reed as much as we're going to miss Devin Bush. I'll tell you that right now.
I agree.
No impact. Might as well not have been on the field.
Yeah, really. Yeah, we need edge depth. And, of course, the main guy that's going to come to mind when it comes to Steelers Nation is, of course, former first-round pick, Bud Alvin Dupree. Could he make a return to the Steelers?
You threw Alvin in there.
That's his real name.
I know it is. That's crazy.
Alvin! Come back to
Listen.
Pittsburgh.
Bud's welcome back, but don't bring your buddies. Okay? We don't need them showing up anymore.
No.
But, man, I would love for Bud and Watt to get that reunion, man. I know it probably won't be in the same fashion of what it was in 2020, but I don't know. There's something about Bud Dupree that just feels right about him being back in Pittsburgh. And I think the Steelers showed interest in that recently. So, I don't know. I mean, just based on like what he's done since leaving Pittsburgh, we all know that story. It didn't really go well down in Tennessee. But, man, I can't help but think, even if it's just to help like get Watt back, as far as like that whole connection they had, because I think that really did play a part in like their performance on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And having him a part of that roster, I think that only boosts things. As far as the defense goes, having Bud in that locker room would be beneficial.
And one benefit with Bud is he's obviously familiar with playing both sides on the edge, right?
Yeah.
Originally, it was Watt and Bud, right, on the sides, but Bud was on Watt's current side.
The left side.
But the year after Watt's rookie year, 2018, I believe,
They switched.
sides, and that's when everything struck.
That's when really Bud started to stand out because that was his more comfortable position, as well as Watt at left outside. That was his comfortable position, and I mean, Jesus Christ, it was an unstoppable duo.
If the health checks out, and depending on what Bud wants, that's really important. It depends where he values himself and what he wants to do. I think a return, hopefully, fingers crossed, is imminent. And I think it's just.
And I would have to think that he's aware that he wouldn't be the starter, but he knows the system. He knows what the Steelers have done at the edge guy. The rotations and the many times, they did it throughout how many years? They did it in Highsmith's rookie year.
But
in Bud's last year.
But after his injury, this might be what's best as of now. As of now.
Yeah, that ACL injury, man, as devastating as it was, I think it's really taken a toll on him to a point that he's not an every down linebacker. He's not an every game starter anymore, which is fine because the Steelers aren't looking for that at this current moment. They already have guys like that in Watson and Highsmith, obviously.
Right.
You just need a dependable rotational piece, and Bud fits that to perfection, in my opinion, especially at this current stage of his career.
I'll be very shocked if the Steelers don't address edge in free agency with being Dupree primarily. Maybe they're targeting someone in the draft due to family ties, or maybe they just like Quincy Roche a lot. But nonetheless, edge depth needs to be improved. And the reason why we're pretty much making this episode and talking about the remaining free agents for the second wave is we all feel we don't think the Steelers are done yet because they still have guys to assign and they have cap to spend and cap to create and moves to still do. So I don't think they're done filling depth on any side of football at any position and possibly bringing their own guys back. So that's why we're really talking about this. But other than that, I mean, the last thing that we can discuss and bring up is maybe Edmonds doesn't come back. Maybe we sign a free agent safety. I mean, most of the guys are already gone. But again, the market's also pretty cheap right now. So if they want to get someone to fill in, or maybe they like Casey enough, or I'm hearing rumors of Kevin Byard, right? The Titans want him to take a pay cut, but
he doesn't want to, and then that's they're at a crosshairs at this moment. And if Byard doesn't do what Tennessee wants, he could be released.
And let me tell you, Byard is one of the best safeties in football and still very young. So he might ask for a pretty penny, but he's deserving. So if you look at his stats, if you look at his impact for the Titans, man, it's crazy to think we still passed on this guy for Artie Burns.
Well, this is a guy I don't think he even received a combine invite.
Really?
He was basically, I think he was quite the unknown, but Tennessee took him in the second round and he burst onto the scene immediately. I believe that's the case.
He's been nothing but a turnover machine.
And the fact that Tennessee wants him to take a pay cut after everything, him being the more consistent defensive player throughout how many years for Tennessee is kind of mind-boggling a little bit.
Yeah, really. I mean, he's always been good. He's been more so of a ball hawk at his role. He's always been a great tackler. He started pretty much every game he's been able to play. He started, I think, every game he's came in to the league outside of maybe a couple in his rookie year. But he's been such a reliable weapon for the Titans secondary. The Titans would be very stupid to let go of him, but seeing their trend and where they're going, I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, there's apparently talks about Derrick Henry potentially being shipped.
I know.
So Tennessee could be a drastically
wild, bro.
Dude.
Tennessee could be a drastically different team by the time September comes around.
And we're not saying he's going to get cut. And it's funny because you just talked about everyone gets cut and everyone's quick to jump on, hey, let's sign him. But seriously, if they want an upgrade, like you always said, Justin, if you're going to let someone go, either find someone as good or get someone better. And that's what Kevin Byard is.
Yeah.
He's a little older than Edmonds. He's going to be 30 in August. But the guy could still play. And, man, is he better than Edmonds. I love Edmonds, but
I mean, come on. If you're asking me to choose, I mean, I'm going Kevin Byard all day. All day, every day.
I mean, that's just – if he gets cut, I mean, and if the Steelers can't get a deal with Edmonds, I mean, maybe they can bring in this guy. They have cap to create. They have cap to spend. So if they want an upgrade, I mean, they could bring him in. We're just going to toss it out there. We don't know.
I mean, he's not like an old man or anything by any means.
No.
You know, being drafted 2016 and more specifically, 2022, almost 80 overall grade, 4 interceptions, which we all know Edmonds doesn't get picks.
No.
So, yeah, I'm on that train all day.
Yeah.
As far as Kevin goes.
So I'll just say that if Edmonds remains a free agent and for some reason the Titans cut him, I think we're all on the Byard train. But that's if that happens. Otherwise, I mean, there's not really much else to talk about.
Could you imagine that?
Him, Minka, and Casey?
Imagine like the Steelers that falling into look, the Steelers right now, safety is a concern. I think it actually maybe we're overlooking like how important this is right now.
You might be right.
Like
Talk
it's
more about
happening
it.
in real time during this podcast. We're sitting here like, oh, wait a minute. We really don't have anything at safety outside of Casey.
That's why I keep pushing for Edmonds to be resigned.
Right.
And
But this, I just saw 2 days ago, it was reported the Titans are at a crossroads with Kevin.
Yep.
The pay cut, all that stuff. So if they release him, the Steelers, and if they have the cap space, of course, the Steelers, because right now I believe they have roughly 13, almost $14 million in cap space. Now, granted, some of that could change, and it will change. It's going to keep changing throughout the entire offseason. But,
Yeah.
man, if that was to happen and the Titans release Kevin, it's almost like it's meant to be.
And you're talking a 3 safety set of ball hawks. They're all ball hawks.
His coverage grade is 81, which is really high.
You know what's insane? If we were to get that, we're talking 3 safeties that at one point all led the league in picks.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
right. I think people don't even realize that with Casey, which is why I think signing him was so genius, because if for whatever reason, I feel like the Steelers are going to take a risk here at safety.
Yeah.
Whether it's, waiting for a guy like Kevin to possibly get released, or if it's in the NFL draft, Casey is your backup plan.
Yep.
Because you can get another guy. There's going to be somebody out there by the time training camp comes around. You bring in another safety, and Casey's your guy.
Yeah. And
For a year.
Casey is
he's more than capable of being the starting strong safety. He's had that role a couple times with Atlanta and I think Dallas at one point.
Yep.
He's a ball hawk. Wherever the ball is, he's there. He showcased that how many times
he's
with the
so
Steelers.
versatile. Anywhere you put him, he produces. He's always been that way.
So if the Steelers aren't looking to, and that's what's the interesting thing, the fact that they chose Casey to be resigned first instead of Edmonds. I mean, what does that make them think of Edmonds? Or is there something that we don't know between contract negotiations?
I don't know, man. I mean, again, this is the second year with the whole Edmonds stuff. So,
Yeah, too quiet.
yeah, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen at safety, but the possibilities are a little exciting, but at the same time concerning. The unknown can always be very scary, but I try to look at it a little more positively, especially seeing what the Steelers have done last week. I don't know. Maybe I'm putting my faith a little too high in them, but I suppose we can trust the process, right? I mean, we all agree the Steelers aren't done making moves.
No.
They still have cap to make. They still have contracts to restructure if they desire to. They got guys to re-sign or sign. They got other positions they could fill for depth. I mean,
And it's crazy. The amount of moves that this new administration and Colin Waddle have been doing is something that us Steelers fans are not used to. And it's crazy to think that we're actually saying that they may not be done yet. And I don't think they are done yet.
no.
It's crazy.
I think they got at least another 1 or 2 signings left. I really do.
I would agree. And that could mean at the free agency pool or even our own free agent. So, or both. But this week, I'm going to, really sit on edge here because I think more moves are coming. I could be wrong, but I get that sense that the Steelers aren't done. So we'll see what the Steelers do. Otherwise, I think that would do it for episode 5, man. Great discussion tonight, boys, talking about our free agents and guys we could still bring in. Just kind of thinking theoretically and just looking at positions we could fill before the draft. Just add flexibility and mostly depth because they've already fixed linebacker. They already fixed O-line for depth and starting guys. And that's why I'm a little excited for this week because I think they can fill other holes that way, like edge, maybe safety, so maybe receiver. We'll see as news should break this week, hopefully, regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers, as there's still names out there. Rumors are going to be flying crazy, but we'll see what they do. Otherwise, that'll do it for episode 5. Stay tuned to SteelYinders.com for all news and stuff breaking regarding the Steelers. We're going to have articles out all week discussing it and discussing what's going to happen. So stay tuned.
We're even going to start some mock draft articles as well.
And-
I'm definitely going to have some of that kind of stuff coming out later this week.
And we want to start doing draft player profiles since, I suppose after the second wave of free agency, it starts to die down a bit. And then we could really start focusing on the draft, which is, again, 5 weeks away. It's going to be fun. So I can't wait for that. And time's already flying, so it'll be here before we know it.
Literally.
But always stay in tune to SteelYinders.com for news and thoughts from all of us. And definitely follow us at Twitter at SteelTwins, and of course Steel Yinzers at Steel Yinzers. Check out Steel Yinzers YouTube channel. Just searching Steel Yinzers. Justin has episodes of Good Steelers Morning weekly. And
it was daily, and it will be daily during the actual season. So
yeah, but more stuff is going to keep coming out throughout our channels and the website. So stay tuned for that. Definitely check us out on social media just to stay updated. Otherwise, this is a great episode. Glad we could get it done tonight, boys, just to get a bonus episode out there and discuss before hopefully the Steelers create some more news and reports coming out. But let us know your guys' thoughts down below. If you're listening to us on YouTube, give us a like, a comment, a subscribe. If you're listening to us on Spotify, feel free to give us a 5-star rating. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and stay in line for episode 6 coming this Sunday. We don't know what the topics are going to be, but hopefully Steelers give us a lot to talk about. So
So stay tuned and like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later. Peace!